Hey guys, it's Travis, the caffeinated pagan scholar. Are you ready for strangers, gods, and monsters? I am, but it's okay if you're not. That's what this video is for. I decided it would be better if we could do a primer of philosophy and some of the key terms that are used in the book. I understand that this book could be very, very difficult if you don't already have a background in philosophy. So let me put my degree to work and try to help you out with some of these words. Also, disclaimer, I really am not trying to come off as a pontificating, pretentious douchebag. It's just philosophy kind of has a way of being an ivory tower in and of itself, and it's a little bit inaccessible sometimes. So you kind of have to, I don't know who's who in philosophy to wade through the immense, incredibly difficult and complicated language. So first off, what is hermeneutics? Well, classically, hermeneutics dealt with the interpretation or exegesis, interpreting scripture, the Bible. Contemporary hermeneutics actually deals with interpretation still, of course, but verbal, nonverbal, how do we know what we know when we're communicating, exchanging, engaging into dialogue? So if we're going to ask that question, how do we know what we know in communication and dialogue, first, you have to deal with the question, how do we know what we know? Which is actually an epistemic question, epistemology. So let's back it up all the way to modern philosophy. Modern philosophy is 17th century to the early 20th century, starting with Descartes, the fucker, and ending in Wittgenstein. Now, the modern philosophers had a lot of doubts, a lot of questions, and a lot of anxiety. How do we know what we know? Well, there's actually a lot of different ways you could answer that question. The modern philosophers thought maybe through our senses, or maybe that there was some a priori knowledge, or maybe that there was an invisible dude in the sky with a long beard and a gray jumpsuit. But they would ask questions like, what is a table? How do I know what we know? How do I know what I am seeing? And am I seeing a table in front of me? Well, describe a table. Well, it's got 4 legs and a flat surface. So, is this a table? 4 legs, flat surface. That's not a table. That's too small to be a table. You have to be able to write on a table. Okay, well, is my car a table? Because I've written on the hood of my car whenever I had to exchange my information for insurance purposes. No, you have to be able to eat at a table. Well, what about operating tables? Are those tables? Never mind. See what I mean? It gets a little bit confusing. From all of this nonsense, we arrive at the postmodernists. So you ask, what is postmodernism? A hot, wet mess. This is no longer art. This is art. But that's just picking on postmodernism. They're actually really cool guys. In fact, one of my primary philosophers pitches his tent in their camp. So again, what is postmodernism? What is the takeaway of postmodernism? We know nothing. Everything is relative, everything is subjective, everything is up to interpretation, and there is no God. There might be God. Whatever. But Travis, what is the actual, answer for a postmodernist of, what is a table? Fuck if I know. As philosophy tried to, find its footing in the murky waters of postmodernism, we have concepts like the other arising. So what is the other? Well, one of the first philosophers to use it is Hegel. Don't you mean Fichte? Shh, I haven't read Fichte. Now, the other is a huge deal in Strangers, Gods, and Monsters. And my interpretation of the other has a very heavy existential bent to it. So I'm going to try and flesh it out a little bit beyond existentialism. But, if you've got, some analytic philosopher watching this, sorry guys, you mean, screw that. So what is the other? Simple. That which is not I. No, it's not that simple. If only. The other is more of a concept that, yes, it is that which is not I, but I, what is the self then? See how it starts to get a little bit more complicated? What is the self? Well, I am me. How do I know who I am? Well, I know that I live in Texas, so Texas is a self, whereas all the other states are others. Well, we live in America, or somewhere, you know, and all of the other nations and countries are others. We are Earthlings, so any other being of a different planet, if there are any, are others. See, this is where it starts to bridge into aliens, strangers, gods, monsters, aliens. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry. It's really exciting. But again, the other is best exemplified like this. Howdy, y'all. Name's Joe Bob. Bonjour, mes amis. Je m'appelle Jacques. So cool. The other is that which we find either repulsive or admirable, of the qualities that are either within us or that we desire to be within us. If I am repulsed by my country upbringing, that is a deep-seated fear, a rooted issue that I strive to not be like, and that is the other, although it might actually reside within me. See, it's getting kind of more weird. Whereas with others, I might find something that I desire, which might actually signal an insecurity. It's like, I wish I was that cool. So it's something that I desire that is rooted in envy? I don't know. Anyways. So yeah, the other, it's this very fluid, very amalgamate thing. I'm sure Kellyanne of the Four Queens could articulate it more loquaciously, but, you know, whatever. So, we can either be repulsed or drawn towards the other due to something that we lack and we desire, or something that we fear that we possess. This leads us into the postmodern idea of the sublime. Sublime is usually kind of a throwaway and misunderstood word. This sherbet is sublime. No. Sublime is not like a fancy word for really expensive escargot or whatever. Sublime is terrifying to the postmodernists. Sublime is that which is wholly other, that which is completely beyond comprehension. It is so other that there is nothing for us to admire or fear because there is no way for us to interpret it in hermeneutics. Anyways, I'm already skipping into the review of the book. So, yeah, the sublime is another keyword that is wholly transcendent. Transcendence. This is another word that we're going to be talking about and using. Transcendence is, again, that which is wholly other, that which is not here, us, I, self. Anyways, but it transcends interpretation. It goes beyond comprehension. Getting into some deep stuff. Now, all of this postmodern bullshit sounds like we can't actually work through anything, that there are no answers. Well, that's where hermeneutics comes in. Hermeneutics is not a postmodern philosophy. Well, I mean, it is, but it's, again, there is nothing ever so simply, like, defined in philosophy. Hermeneutics is a move towards making sense of postmodernism, of putting together. It's a structuralism, or postmodernism. There's this idea in hermeneutics that, can we actually know what we know when we're communicating? Can we actually communicate? You've got a lot of different philosophers. You've got Derrida, you've got Caputo, you've got Levinas. So what is hermeneutics? Again, after all of this postmodern bullshit, what is hermeneutics? Hermeneutics is the reply to postmodernism. Postmodernism says we can never know what we know, life is absurd, all these other things that are very French and very continental. Hermeneutics is like, hey guys, let's calm down, let's put the hammer down and not destroy completely all of our reason, and say, wait, let's communicate, let's talk about it. And then the postmodern's like, well, how do we know what we're talking about? How do we know what we're talking about, what we're talking about? And hermeneutics is like, shut the fuck up. This is how we are communicating. And sometimes hermeneutics does kind of bleed back into postmodernism. But hermeneutics, again, at the very beginning of the video, is how we communicate, how we interpret, and how we communicate a dialogue. Is real communication happening? Is a YouTube video communication? Oh, thesis paper. No. Anyways. So yeah, those were just a few things that we might be discussing when we review Strangers, Gods, and Monsters. I mean, I have not covered the surface of that book. And guys, I just have an undergrad in philosophy, so other philosophy people out there, I'm sorry if I've butchered the concept of something. You know, you're watching it, pulling your hair out, and you're like, that's not what Kant would say. Well, you know what? Kant can Suck it. So, anyways, guys, this is my fumbled attempt at creating a primer for the next video that's going to happen. But for now, that's really all I've got. I'm sure we'll come across some more cumbersome words as we're actually reviewing the book. I'll do my best to be brief about that. In the meantime, I hope you're all having a wonderful whatever day it is that I post this. And as always, merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again.